Good morning, everyone. My name is John Konarski, publisher of In Business Magazine, and I hope you are all staying healthy and doing well during this crazy 2020. I do want to thank everyone for joining us today for part two of this very important discussion. I do hope that all of you have had a chance to read through our first part of this series, which was included in the October issue of In Business Magazine. And if you've not read it, you can also check it online now at ibmadison.com. So make sure to give that a read. A lot of really good information in that October issue roundtable. So again, we encourage you to check that out if you have not had a chance to read that roundtable discussion yet. Before I go any further, I do want to thank our sponsors of this program that both have sponsored the first part of this series as well as today's program. American Family Dream Bank, Madison College, and Summit Credit Union. We really appreciate all three companies stepping forward to sponsor such an important conversation and discussion at this time. So a real heartfelt thank you to our sponsors, again, for stepping forward and supporting this important program here today. In the aftermath of all of the separate tragic incidents that have gone on over these past several 4 to 5 months that have really brought these racial injustice and inequality issues to the forefront, we felt here at In Business Magazine that it was important for us to get involved in this conversation. Obviously, this has all sparked a lot of good conversation and discussion throughout this community, the state, and the country here over the past few months. And obviously, those conversations are going to have to continue and ultimately, hopefully, turn into more action. With our dialogue, our specific dialogue here today, though, we really wanted to focus in on what we can do as a local business community to hopefully spark some action in bringing more racial equality to our businesses, as well as building a stronger Black entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Madison area. And so part two here today is really more of a follow-up discussion where we want to take your reader feedback, the questions that you had following our print feature earlier this month, and take those discussions a little bit deeper here today. So we've only got about an hour's worth of time here. We've got a lot of questions that were already submitted before the event today. But we do encourage you, if you have additional questions that you want to pose for our panelists, we encourage you to submit those during the program today. You'll see a Q&A icon on your screen, or scroll over your screen, you'll see a Q&A icon. Submit your questions there. And we'll do our very best, again, in a very limited amount of time here to answer as many questions as we possibly can throughout the program here today. When we set out to plan this program, we really felt it was necessary to have someone leading these discussions that knows the realities of these issues and someone that is very accustomed to leading discussions on these topics. So we reached out to Henry Sanders, and we're so grateful for Henry's participation and his agreement to join us and to really lead these conversations for us. So I want to introduce Henry. Henry has been a force for the community, for community development, economic development, and entrepreneurism in Madison, the state, and region now for nearly 20 years. He worked for the city of Madison and then Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin before joining the Madison Chamber of Commerce as vice president. In that capacity, he started the Small Business Advisory Council, the Latino Chamber of Commerce, the African American Black Business Association, and he was also the founder of the young professionals organization Magnet, Madison Network of Black Professionals, and Capacity 360, which is a government relations firm that brought more than $15 million to Wisconsin businesses. Of course, Henry is now CEO and publisher of Madison 365 and 365 Nation. And we're just, again, thrilled that Henry accepted our invitation to lead these conversations. So hello, Henry, welcome. Looks like you're on mute, so you might want to unmute yourself, but thanks for joining us here today, Henry. And I'm gonna turn things over to Henry in just a minute here, but I want to first of all introduce our other 4 panelists that are going to be talking here today. And all 4 of these individuals were a part of our the first part of our program here. So they've dedicated a lot of time for us here over the past month. So again, we cannot be more appreciative of their participation. The first panelist is Dr. Ruben Anthony. Dr. Anthony has been the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison since March of 2015. In that time, he's been with the Urban League of Greater Madison. They have increased their job placements by 39% and have made over 1,400 placements to date. Good morning, Dr. Anthony. Thanks for doing this. Good morning. All right, our next panelist is Camille Carter. Camille is an entrepreneur and the president and CEO of the Madison Black Chamber of Commerce. In this role, she advocates to leverage resources that strengthen economic development and impact for Black-owned businesses in Dane County. Good morning, Camille. We'll see if she joins. All right, good morning. All right, our next panelist is Kimila Daniels, Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer at Quartz Health Solutions. She possesses more than 2 decades of HR and organizational development experience, and her background also includes leadership positions in both the public and private sector within the insurance, healthcare, entertainment, and higher education industries. Good morning, Kimila. Give a wave. Good morning, and thank you. And last but certainly not least, our fourth panelist, fifth if you want to include Henry, is Cedric Ellis. Cedric is the Executive Vice President, Chief Enterprise Services Officer at CUNA Mutual Group, where he's responsible for leadership of critical functions in support of the general operations of the company, including diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is also the president of the board for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Dane County. Good morning, and thank you, Cedric.
Right.
And again, I just want to real quickly thank all of you for joining us again. Again, like I said, you've dedicated a lot of your time, valuable time over the past month on this really important conversation, I feel like, for the business community of Madison and the Greater Madison region. So we've got a lot to get through. I'm going to hop off and turn things over to Henry. Henry, it's your show now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And thank you, John. I want to thank John for everything you're doing. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for everyone in business for allowing us to have this conversation, especially at this time. As you know, we have 2 pandemics going on right now. We get to address one of them in a major way. I want to thank my esteemed panelists who are just power brokers and people who just have a lot of knowledge and wisdom to share. Even off camera, Kimila offered to educate me on some things. So we are always showing love to each other. And so, and this week, as you know, we always try to have a family conversation too. So that's part of it. We want to have an authentic conversation. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask a question. We will try to get to them. We have a lot of questions in a short period of time. But if you ask a question, I promise I'll try to get to them. But Camille, let me start with you. What is your definition of economic empowerment?
Thank you, Henry. It's great to be here. And again, you know, when you think about economic empowerment and the reason why we are here, you have to kind of think of the starting point. And economic empowerment, when you think about it is really where equitable opportunities meet reality, right? It is the actual infrastructure and allowing individuals to act on their own authority and, in fact, have greater predictability for the right outcomes to occur. So when you think about someone, equity and empowering them to be equitable in their charter, you are looking at, you know, an infrastructure within the educational system. You're looking at an infrastructure within the banking systems that are designed to allow individuals to be successful and to be productive and to be empowered and to advance in their own agendas, in the right agendas. And that's where economic empowerment actually starts at the core.
Cedric, what about you? How would you answer that question?
So I think a little bit about a couple of things. I think about, you know, the fact that, you know, as you think about the Black community, we've been historically disadvantaged, you know, including from the beginning, right? So if you think about being excluded from certain career opportunities and being excluded from owning things like property, I think about how do you actually create more of a level playing field when you think about economic security. And I think that for me, when I think about the term, I think about how do you engage, how does an individual engage in economic activities that actually not just support themselves, but actually the community or the society at large. And I think about how that has been limited, by design through all of our history in the States. So when I think about that, I want to think about how do we create more of a level playing field and frankly, create more affirmative steps to actually empower folks to be more financially and economically independent.
Yeah, it's powerful. Camilla, what about you, Camilla? How you feel about this?
Good morning, everyone. First, I want to just say that I'm very honored to be on the panel with Cedric, Camille, and Dr. Anthony, and also you, Henry. So very excited to be a part of this with you. And thank you, In Business, for creating this platform. For me, for many who might know me, they know I'm very straight to the point, very simplistic. And for me, economic empowerment is about control over making decisions on resources, specifically financial resources, and having those financial resources include the ability to create wealth by purchasing homes, to have input into the education system, to have input into the work environment. And economic empowerment also means that the right people are at the table to help shape what the solutions are to create that control over resources.
Yeah, I wish we had more time to delve on that, the control, and how do we get control, and what does that look like, and without threatening other people to think that's somehow taken from them. That's a deeper conversation. I wish we had more time on that. Dr. Ruben Anthony, sir, same question to you.
So economic empowerment to me from a Black perspective is letting Black people share in the wealth, allowing Black people to experience economic prosperity, creating greater wealth building opportunities for African Americans, creating profitable minority-owned businesses and letting them get access to lucrative government contracting, allowing others, as Camille and the others have said, to control their economic destiny. Economic empowerment means fair access to banking, fair access to banking relations. And so it is, having a seat at the table and being empowered to work and to have the freedom to have decisions turn out favorable for Black companies.
Yeah, so control and access, I think that's powerful stuff. So I'm gonna come to you, Kimila, on this question. What support can non-Black business allies provide to strengthen the Black business ecosystem?
Thank you, Henry. Well, when I look at it, I look at it from really more of the private sector or corporate sector. When I think about allies, specifically, where do the dollars lie? And when I think about the growth opportunity that corporations in the private sector have, and the actual span of control that they have or reach that they have, I would be suggesting to the corporate world, we have quite a few businesses in Madison, that they extend their resources out to help mentor either new Black businesses that are just off the ground, or to create a partnership where they can mentor young, well, I shouldn't say young in the business environment, but those that are aspiring to be entrepreneurs. Because what that looks like in regards to mentorship is needing resources to help build a business plan. Or in some cases, they may already have a business plan, but they need a sounding board to really flesh out and ensure that that is a business plan that's sustainable. Most importantly, they need assistance with resources. And when I say resources, it presents itself in many ways. First and foremost, it would be the finances. So there are some organizations in Madison that have a foundation, who are very, very philanthropic. I would suggest that they consider creating some type of fund to help support the mentoring with building the business plans, providing seed money. So a lot of the Black businesses, especially their newer ones, they don't have access to the finances that other entrepreneurs have and business have, because they don't have the wealth to build on. They don't have the ownership. They rely on what they're earning in their wages now, and credit cards, if they have credit cards, to get their business off the ground, because they're not able to obtain the financing. So when I speak about seed money, it's not necessarily a loan, but investing in them. And then another resource I think is very critical for them is, how do they market their product, right? So, there's just a lot of unknowns in regards to how do you market a product, how do you expand the reach of the product, and especially in the pandemic right now, my perspective around marketing is creating that digital footprint. So how do you get the information out about your new business via the internet and advertising in that way? So those are some examples of support that allies could provide more from a corporate perspective.
Yeah, what a wealth of knowledge right there. And I think that's important, what you're saying. Mentorship is also important too. Cedric, I'm coming to you, Cedric, with the same question. And you have to get this question right. If you're like me, I always have people asking allies, how can allies be supportive in what's going on right now? So same question to you. What support can non-Black business allies provide to strengthen the Black business ecosystem? I'm smiling because Cedric, I can just imagine what you're going to answer this question.
So there are a couple of things I think, as I think about places, like CUNA Mutual, in the private sector, I think about, the allyships that exist in non-Black businesses will actually require not just that kind of supporting from a mentoring, how to set up, how to do business, but are you really truly building a true supplier diversity program? Are you really leveling that playing field to give, Black and minority owned businesses an opportunity to compete for some of that business? I think that the other thing that I hope that the private sector folks are doing are partnering with minority and Black owned businesses to share some of that wealth of the contracting. For instance, there are large companies like ours that do significant purchasing. Not all the large vendors that we have can supply everything. So, are they sharing in what those things look like? And are they being really specific and reaching in to Black and minority owned businesses to help fulfill some of those orders and of equipment and services that companies like CUNA Mutual do? But I think that most importantly, it's really setting up a supplier diversity program that not only just to have one in name, but actually is really specific about sharing in that pie. I mean, I think that one of the things that we've done at CUNA Mutual is being really specific about not just building a building, but how do you make sure that the folks that are building the building, that there's diversity there, that all the materials that it's going to take to build that building, that we're being really specific to go out and cast a really wide net to get bids from minority Black owned businesses. So I think that there's a lot in terms of being intentional that non-Black businesses and allies can do to really support the Black ecosystem. And it is about sharing in that wealth, sharing in that spend, sharing in that employment to make sure that we're giving Black and minority owned businesses an opportunity to participate in that growth, thereby sharing in that economic prosperity.
Camille, I'll come to you with the same question. What support can non-Black business allies provide to strengthen the Black business ecosystem?
I think Kimila and Cedric really, took at the lion's share when you talk about mentorship, when you talk about, strengthening the supplier diversity chain, when you really talk about sharing of the resources. From a capacity standpoint, these organizations have a wealth of resources and also a commitment to the community to share in the actual profit share, if you will, in the gains and the benefits of the corporations. We are all taxpayers, we're all contributors to the community, and corporations, are stewards and provide stewardship within those roles. And, speaking from the entrepreneurial track, if you just ingest those three, you really have something that Black businesses can work with.
Yeah, that's true. And I appreciate you saying that as being the Black Chamber of Commerce. You also know that we have a very limited entrepreneurs who are Black in the city too, right? So I'll come to you, Dr. Ruben Anthony, with the same question, with a little caveat of knowing that we don't have a lot of Black businesses here. Same question though, and that caveat though, that we know we don't have a lot of Black business here, small business here in Madison and Dane County. What support can non-Black business allies provide to strengthen the Black business ecosystem?
So first I would say, when I'm last, these guys say everything that I was going to say because they're brilliant. So much of what they've said, I won't echo, but I will say the point that Cedric made about supply diversity is critical. But supply diversity doesn't happen unless leadership in those organizations are committed to making it happen. And I think in our last conversation, Kimila said the fact that leadership at the top, drives this. So leaders in the organization have to say that given African-American companies greater access to opportunity and other types of minorities and women, access to opportunity is a priority. If they don't do that, supply diversity goes nowhere. So you have to have that. And supply diversity has to be real. And it has to go out, and find a way to make it happen on the construction projects, on the procurement, and all those other things. And so supply diversity also has to happen up and down the line. It has to happen in the boardrooms. I think that you have to have a diverse boardroom also to change the culture in organizations to say, that this is important, and that diversity is an economic, benefit. That if you can bring in diverse, talent and diverse thinking, you can have a competitive edge. And so now I'll address the question about this whole notion that there's not sufficient minority businesses ready, willing, and able here. I bump against that notion because I know the city did the study showing that at least in the construction industry, that there's less than 2% minority businesses here ready, willing, and able. The problem is that the ecosystem breaks down because minority businesses lose confidence. Why would I invest in a business and think that I'm going to do work with you when you don't have a tradition of doing work with Black businesses, or if the city or the county or if the private sector don't have an interest or a history of doing work? Why would I make that investment? Because to invest, I've got to go and take my retirement, or I've got to take an inheritance, or I've got to take my equity and invest. And if my confidence is broken and the eco chain is broken because minority businesses can't start up because you haven't allowed them access to opportunities, then why would they? Why would they start? And so I think that there's more upside here than the market gives us credit for.
So I have to follow up because this all of you were nodding your heads on this, right? Every one of you were nodding your heads when Dr. Ruben was speaking. So this tells that this hit a nerve with everyone here. So the question is, why is this not happening in Madison? Why are we not having more people on our boards? Why are we not supplying diversity? Why is that not happening in Madison? Like now, since Dr. Ruben Anthony, since you complained that you were last, now you will be first, sir.
So you put me first on the hard question, right? That's a corporate question. That's for you guys. I just think that, I'll just be flat out blunt. Corporations have not gotten it done. We are blocked out of the boardrooms. We are blocked out of these boards, and they have to change. They have to let African-American women and other minorities into the boardrooms. If they're not doing that, they're failing us. And so, when we talk about economic empowerment, economic empowerment involves, letting us help make the decisions about how wealth will be dispersed, letting us participate, in the wealth. And so it's been a barrier. We break the glass ceiling for a lot of things. I look across corporations and we're seeing the glass ceiling be dented, a little bit in terms of bringing women executives and minority executives in to a certain extent. But in the boardroom, we are failing greatly.
Does anyone want to jump on this question? Because it was sort of a follow-up to Dr. Ruben Anthony's earlier statement. Feel free to. Okay, Cedric.
So I want to chime in a little bit here. And the first thing I'd say is this. So recognize this, that, and I think we're all pretty astute and know that, board seats and bringing that change there is difficult, largely because it is a club. And if anybody thinks it's not, take a look at Madison in particular. Take a look at who sits on whose board, and it's always somebody who knows someone. It is a small, tight-knit club that typically doesn't have folks who look like us. So the opportunity gets really limited because, Joe's going to call Joe's friend, and Joe's friend is not likely a person of color and not likely a woman. So therein lies the first challenge. I think that two, we all reach out to the kind of standard search firms to help us with board searches. Most of those firms do not have a pipeline of brown and Black people, period. So as I think about the opportunity, the opportunity gets limited. So you have to be intentional about requiring your search firms to be really specific about creating some diversity in that candidate pool. You, as CEO, board chair, you've got to be even more intentional about, do I have the right, mix, the right diversity at this table? You got to go beyond the status quo. And that's what it requires. It really requires folks to shake up the status quo.
Kimila or Camille, do you want to get on this question? If not, I can go to the next one. But I just want to be fair. Again, this is not a question that we had pre. I kind of, y'all were nodding, so I had to address it. That's all.
I think it definitely starts with intentionality. It starts with policies and procedures. It's about the culture. It's about the value system. And really, this pandemic has really forced us, obviously we're here on this panel and in this platform, to kind of come together and collaborate. So we know that problem exists at that level. And now we are really being forced to come together and to find ways to get outside of our silos and to really start reading those value statements and to really start looking at, are we really investing in the way that, we state to the public? And so now is just the time to be reflective of that, but it really does start with diversification at all levels.
So I have to chime in. Yeah, I have to chime in. So thank you, Dr. Anthony, Cedric, and Camille. And I would just echo the intentionality. So, a couple things Cedric said that really struck a chord with me in relationship to being intentional about diversifying our board and our leadership. I think one of the challenges, and just full disclosure, we have this challenge at my organization, is the sense of urgency to fill roles. The sense of urgency to get someone in, and oh, by the way, they need to already be fully competent in every aspect of the role with the organization. And I don't know how anyone could do that if they didn't start at that organization. So I would challenge organizations to slow down their process in relationship to recruiting, because it will to diversify, not only with board seats, but with staff and also with supplier diversity, need to slow down the process to be intentional. I would challenge organizations when they're looking at their board, a lot of the board makeup is based on really understanding the business. But I think there's an opportunity to bring in community members to be on a board that are in turn receiving the benefit or the services from that business. And in that will allow them the opportunity to bring in more diverse individuals at the board level. So we need to slow it down, be very intentional, and then think outside the box in relationship to how we add diversity to boards. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I love that. And having a sense of urgency is just, I think that's important too. And also, like, I think that people don't talk about the data that backs up how diversity helps the bottom line. It helps innovation, it helps the businesses. I mean, this is just factual data backs this up. So sometimes we don't talk about that. We kind of talk about it's the right thing to do instead of saying, we actually help the business model, what you're trying to accomplish. I want to switch to a different question here. And Dr. Ruben, Anthony, I'm gonna come back to you and start with you on this one. So now you can't, brother, you can't complain for the rest of the day. You can't complain for the rest of the day.
I gotta give you a hard time.
I came for you twice. The Madison Community Foundation has a fund in place to help downtown businesses. Is there a central fund for Black businesses?
There is no central fund for Black businesses, but if there would be one, it should be at the Black Chamber where Camille is. And I can tell you that the Urban League of Greater Madison is putting together a Black business hub, and we expect to have a collective of Black businesses there. You know, we're taking a new approach. You know, we're saying that we have to stop betting on the horse and we have to bet, you know, on the jockey. And so we're betting on our Black businesses, and we're identifying, you know, Blacks in the community that might make good developers, that might make big, good business owners. And we're putting that investment there. We talk about good partners. Dane County has put up over $2 million to make this piece happen. So you talk about putting an investment there. You know, we're going to be able to purchase some land in South Madison, and we're choosing South Madison because that is where many of the African-American enclave exist, if there is one in Madison. And so we want to make that investment. Again, we saw the investment with Madison College with Dr. Daniels, you know, choosing to go there where the opportunities are. We're going to do the same thing. And I suspect I'll have a little bit more time to elaborate on our Black business model with some questions further. But I think if there is a fund, it should be at the Black Chamber. And certainly the investment should be made in the Black businesses that will be in the Black Hub in South Madison.
Yeah, you're right about the South Side. Shout out to Dr. Daniels over there for moving to South Side. That was a big deal for the city. Hoping people appreciate what he did. Camille, what do you? Come on now, what do you think? He gave you some love. He said that it could come to you. I mean, there's a lot of Black folks right now saying, "Wait a minute, this should be coming to us." What do you think about that? They're saying that if there was a fund, it should come to the Black Chamber.
Well, certainly, you know, we exist for all of our Black businesses throughout Madison and the Dane County area. Our initiative is to ensure that our businesses are properly allocated and resourced, or at least know where the resources are here in Madison. You know, our chamber continues to grow and continues to evolve. Our businesses are coming to us more and more on a daily basis, really wanting and seeking assistance and just really trying to pivot and restart, launch, scale, and grow. So, you know, I certainly thank Dr. Anthony for that. That is a huge compliment. We do not take that lightly. We do have serious intentionality when it comes to our operations and just trying to build the best foundational organization that we can for Black economics and Black businesses. We will continue to grow, and I certainly trust and hope that if, you know, a fund does exist and becomes available, that we can play and be a steward to the execution of that, because we have gained the respect of many of our Black businesses and will continue to do so.
I actually think it's a great idea for you to start that fund. I'm seconding that. If I had a vote, I'd vote, yeah, you should start that. It's needed. Sincerely, it is needed. Does Cedric, Kimila want to answer this question?
So I want to just chime in a little bit here. So there are a couple of things that I think are pretty important. I do think that you know, being focused and, you know, how do we help stand up, you know, Black and brown owned businesses? There absolutely needs to be, you know, real focused funds, because I think that if you take a look, I think the data will tell you, when businesses start to fall, who falls first and who doesn't come back. But I also think there's an opportunity for Madison, not just the Madison Chamber, but the Black Chamber as well, to kind of be forward thinking about how do we provide seed money if we really know where the businesses are going to be. Particularly, I think there's a lot of learning around the whole digitization of our businesses. How do we help brown and Black owned businesses stand up to provide that kind of vendorship to companies like CUNA Mutual? I think that there's plenty of opportunity out there. We just have to figure out, how to be forward thinking, to start up those businesses, to actually create beyond like businesses that will be impacted by things like a pandemic.
And just thank you for that, Cedric. I just want you to know that we had another Camille, someone commented and said, yes, for community funds to Black Chamber. So you have some support out there.
Well, again, without investment in the Black businesses directly, and they come to us all the time. And you said it a little bit earlier, Henry, or I think maybe even Kimila, someone said it. Our Black businesses are underfunded, and they are, starting their businesses within their own resources. They are have not had a great confidence with the financial institutions due to the lack of economic empowerment and all the access to the capital that a traditional white counterpart business can have. Our businesses are extremely resourceful, and those funds are well needed. A lot of times the funding even that we are currently getting as a chamber are often restricted. They're going into programmings where our businesses need capitalization in order to grow and to thrive. And that is a huge gap. We are not capitalized. I don't even want to say undercapitalized. We are not capitalized.
Yeah, I would even argue that our nonprofits are not capitalized enough. We're led by
That's
people.
a whole nother, that is very true. And that's another story.
That's right.
But people,
Now you
people
starting
led
to
by-
fight, Henry.
Yeah, right? No, I don't mean. I'm trying to. I'm just
You
trying to
started
address
some
the
good
issue,
trouble.
Right? But I think that I do see. I'm not trying to say no problem. No problem.
I said good trouble.
Right, but I do think it's factual that if you look at nonprofit organizations that are focused on helping people of color, I think they are truly underfunded, especially all the issues we have in Dane County. I mean, I just truly underfunded for all the issues we have. But Kimila, I want to give you a chance to answer this question too, please.
Yeah, I think my panelists have covered it. I don't have anything new to add. Definitely would like to dig into that nonprofit funding, but that may be a whole nother panel. The only thing I'll say about that is I've lived in 5 states, but Madison seems to be, and here in Wisconsin, it feels like the non-for-profit capital of the world. The challenge with that is they're all competing for the same funds of money. And oftentimes the non-for-profits that are really serving the Black and brown community are pitted against each other for funding. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I think my fellow colleagues have covered the question, the original question.
Okay. I'm tempted to move on, but I think we got to address this. I think we have to address it, just to be fair to our viewers. I think we have to address this. So I'm gonna come to you, Dr. Ruben Anthony. You've been in the nonprofit world for a long time here, being a champion at Urban League. You have a state background. You have an entrepreneur. You have a small business too. People don't know that about you, but you're also well informed about how funders operate nonprofits and how nonprofits are in the state of Wisconsin, etc. But it was my statement off? Because correct me if I'm wrong, brother. Am I wrong that nonprofits that are led by people of color tend to be underfunded in Dane County? If I'm wrong, please educate.
No, I agree. I think we tend to be underfunded. We're underfunded in terms of not being able to pay our staff, what we should pay, what they should be getting. In Dane County, we say $15 an hour is a sustainable wage, a salary. Well, a lot of times we can't pay our staff, much more than that, but we do critical work. We do work that the state doesn't do and the private sector doesn't do. We fill in the gap, whether it's helping create jobs, putting people into jobs, whether it's helping with home ownership, whether it's helping with social justice issues, anything that someone walks off the street and they need help for, they usually come for us. And so now that I've said that, I'll also say that we do get a lot of help, here. But as Kimila said, there are a lot of nonprofits here. And I don't think that, we can continue to provide redundant services. And, as people are thinking about forming nonprofits, they probably need to support, some of the existing nonprofits, because there is a proliferation of nonprofits. And I'm not saying we don't need to do more. I'm just thinking that we need to make sure that the nonprofits that are effective in getting the job done, we need to make sure that we fund them more. Nonprofits are made to be accountable in 99 different ways. And so nonprofits that are not producing, maybe, they need to go away, just like in the business world. Businesses that don't produce go away. But we don't need a million nonprofits, but we need more funding to nonprofits that are getting the job done. And so I'll stop there, because I can go on with this all day.
Well, this is good. Now, Kim, I'm gonna come to you because you said you want to dig a little bit on this. But I think you mentioned something about, I think one of you mentioned how they have nonprofits, how we kind of pit each other against each other. And I know as us Mass 365 being a nonprofit, I go talk to a funder and they start talking about what Alex G is doing. And I'm like, well, I'm a media outlet. What is Alex G doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's just only thing we have in common is we're both two Black men.
Right.
So it's how do you address this, Kimila? I'm just curious.
If I had the right answer, I probably would be like Cedric, someplace in a warm environment with palm trees right now. But, I think there's an opportunity for real true education on the difference between these non-for-profits. So you brought up a very good point, Henry, in regards to your experience being, compared to like the work that Alex G is doing. And I think that's just individuals not being educated on the non-for-profits, who's leading them, and what the objectives are of the non-for-profit. But I think there's an opportunity for some of the Black non-for-profits to come together and collaborate and pool their resources to move forward in certain initiatives. So when I think about the workforce development and job training, there's an opportunity for those non-for-profits to come together, come to the table, and develop a strategy with all viewpoints taken into consideration to move forward. And then the funding would go to that one overall strategy. I think those non-for-profits could do a better job at doing that. The other thing is, I think non-for-profits have a huge role to play in regards to Black economic empowerment. So they have, again, bringing them together, a collective voice to advocate for things like housing, things like fair wages, sustainable wages, job opportunities, and things like that. So they have a responsibility to come together and have a collective voice regarding that. And I have to give a shout out to, I'm not going to name all the non-for-profits, but they're like with Urban League is actually doing some really great work in regards to workforce development. So is the YWCA, and they have a program that's being expanded nationally, the Y Web. And those programs are giving individuals skills to make a sustainable wage, to start to build their financial assets. And so to Dr. Ruben's comment about those organizations that really have initiatives that are making sustainable change, we need to determine how we can better fund those and not restrict the funds. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but
you answered it and then some.
Great. Thank you.
Cedric and Camille, do you want to answer this question? And if not, I can move to another question, but I want to give you an opportunity.
So I do want to just add a little here. I do think that, so as president of CUNA Mutual's Foundation, we have been taking a look at nonprofits that are run by folks of color and what that funding looks like, and how do we help stand up those nonprofits. And a big piece of that is we're trying to get as close to the folks who have the solution versus having power over. So how do we stand alongside businesses, the nonprofit businesses that are actually advancing the strategy to help people reach financial independence, help people get more empowered financially. So at CUNA Mutual Foundation, we've done that very specifically. And I think that there's a lot to be said for companies that have foundations, that, how do you stand alongside versus having power over? Because I think that there's an interesting dynamic that comes into play. I think there are places, as we think about like the next generation, there are places like Madam that are doing amazing work with girls and youth of color from a digital perspective. I think, CUNA Mutual, we're being really intentional about not just, how do we provide basic services, how do we help provide basic services to folks specifically during this time, but how do we think about the next generation and what are some of the needs that actually help people build economic empowerment and financial stability. So there's a lot to be done. I do think that, as somebody who also, chairs the board of a nonprofit, there are a lot of nonprofits in Madison, and it often feels like, duplication, and a lack of collaboration. So I really would push Madison to get more of that collaboration, because you can actually do more together versus, the individual pieces.
Yeah, thank you for that. And there's about 4,300 nonprofits in Dane County, but only about 20 of them are ran by people of color. So it's a small portion actually run it. But I want to get to another question. We have so many questions. We have some questions from people from the audience. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to respect everyone's time. But I think this is a good question here. What would be the top 1 to 3 things working in Madison that I can implement elsewhere to support and amplify Black people, Black founders, and other areas? I'll start with you, Kimila, on this one.
Oh, you would start with me. I need some time to think about that.
Okay, I can come back. I come back to you. I come back. I'll start with you, Camille.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question a little bit?
Yeah.
It was.
What would be the top 1 to 3 things working in Madison that I can implement elsewhere to support and amplify Black folks, Black people?
That are working in Madison to amplify Black people?
What can they duplicate in Madison that's working somewhere else, that's working for helping Black people? And what can they take in something like Texas, for example? What can they do in Texas to say, oh, this is what's working well in Madison to help Black people?
Oh, well, I think that coming together and working for the better good of Black people, you've got several initiatives. We've been kind of working in silos, and I think we're all working towards the progressiveness of us all. We've got some excellent projects that are in the work. Nehemiah has done some excellent work and has an excellent model of working with, the reincarcerated and the recidivism and kind of economic development within that lane. We are working with Dr. Anthony and the Urban League on a new business hub accelerator, and we're very excited about that momentum. The platform that Madison 365 does is excellent, and that's not just in Madison, it's currently statewide and expanding. I think that's an excellent model for sharing the stories and sharing, the news. Umoja Magazine is another platform that kind of delivers positive news of what Black individuals are doing, families, children. These are all great examples within education, within marketing and media, within economic development that are, I think, all great examples and have promising outlooks to take on to other cities.
Thank you. Thank you for the love. I appreciate that. And you're right, Umoja, there would be no Master 65 without Umoja. So we stand on the back of Malele.
And Black Chamber neither.
Yeah, so I appreciate that love. Dr. Ruben Anthony, would you like to answer this question?
Sure. First, I would say one of the relationships that I think would be a model for not just Madison, but for other cities is our relationship with Exact Science. I think nonprofit and private collaborations are critical. So Exact Science has been intentional about, having us be like one of their primary or premier training partners. And they have guaranteed that as we train individuals, whether it's for customer care lab, that they're going to put a lot of them to work. In our last 2 classes, they've hired 100%, of the folks that have trained. In the class before that, they hired 75% of the folks that have trained. We actually have a model of where we go after jobs that are in demand, and we look for partners like Exact Science, CUNA Mutual, UW Health, SSM, and all those guys on the same thing. And that's a model that I think is extrapolatable to other places. The other thing that we don't give Madison enough credit for is the philanthropic support that we have here. As a nonprofit, as much as we might complain that folks are not doing a whole lot, when I look at Racine, Kenosha, and Milwaukee, and some of the support that they get versus what we get a whole lot of support. And, even though we struggle to have enough funds to do all that we need to do, we have very supportive, philanthropic organizations here. Corporate organizations also do great philanthropy, for us here, and they establish great partnerships. So as much as we complain about, that, Madison is a tale of 2 cities and, how bad we do have some, great corporate and philanthropic support here in Madison for nonprofits.
That's true, especially in comparison to Milwaukee or Racine, Kenosha. We are nonprofits that we do real well compared to those cities. I actually agree with that 100%, Dr. Ruben. Cedric and Camilla, you want to answer this one?
So I want to just share. So I do think that the Black Business Hub is a really good place for folks to try to replicate. I think that as Dr. Anthony just said, we worked with the Urban League to kind of establish a program. We recognized where we had gaps for potential employees, built a training program, guarantee hire. There are so many of those types of situations that I think can be replicated when it comes to an individual, and you're talking about getting people to fuller employment. There's an opportunity there. But I think what will be really impactful is companies that have either investment arms or foundations is really coming together to think a little bit about how do you build a venture capitalist fund that actually helps stand up brown and Black owned businesses in a really intentional, not just, from a capital perspective, but how do you provide the mentoring? How do you provide the structure that actually helps a business be successful? I think there's a huge opportunity to do more of that in Madison.
Yeah. Kimila, do you want to answer this question?
Sure. Again, my colleagues have covered most of it, but when I talked earlier about a program that the YWCA has that I think is scalable, and they are actually taking it nationally, which is the Wide Web program. So more programs like that would be helpful. And then I'm going to give a shout out to Madison College. So for when we think outside of the states, Madison College made a bold move to put a campus in an area that needs a campus. And basically what they did is they really kind of start the wheels turning or the ball rolling in regards to investing in South Madison, which is predominantly Black and brown communities. So I think as other states look at, or other cities look at how they can invest, that's something that they should look at from a corporate perspective. How can corporations put offices or satellite offices in those underrepresented areas to draw employees to that area, to draw patrons to that area? How can we put things in those communities? How can they put things in those communities that are going to grow, like a community college and other different services like that? So I think, what Madison has done in that regard is something that's scalable across the United States. It has to be intentional, though.
I love that. You're right. Dr. Daniels made a risky move that everyone was approved of. No one liked that move, and he did it anyways, and it proved to be the right move. And I will give a shout out to also the Black Wellness by Lisa Payton Care, that is something that I think can be duplicated other places. I think that is something. And I would say invest in your leaders of color, invest in them, their creativity, innovation. They're really trying to solve problems. Your problem and wherever you are might be different from problems we have. So if you heard they talk about Madam earlier, talk about Vanessa at YWCA. So we're talking about investing in people who are creative to actually solve the problems on the ground. We have a question here. Is there a way to identify what services are needed to assist Black-owned businesses develop a business plan and seek assistance? Let me read it again. I'll read it one more time. Is there a way to identify what services are needed to assist Black-owned business develop a business plan and seek assistance? That was one of our people watching right now.
You want me to go?
Please.
I can tell you, Black businesses need access to capital. They need access to capital during startup. They need access to capital during maintenance. They need access to capital when it's time to scale. Black businesses need bonding and insurance. A lot of times that serves as a barrier to them, getting a start. Black businesses need affordable spaces. So if you want to make an investment, we're talking about doing affordable spacing with the Black Business Hub that you heard us talk about, quite a bit here. Support your Black Chamber of Commerce. Our Black Chamber of Commerce is going to be critical, making sure that we build the capacity in that Black Chamber of Commerce to be sustainable. Bring your resources to the Black Chamber of Commerce, bring your resources to the Urban League and this hub that we're putting together, and we can help Black businesses start, maintain, and expand.
Thank you. I have two questions I want to get to before we leave, because I think it's important. Most of our audience want to get. We have 2 minutes here, so hopefully go a little bit over, but I think it's important because I know a lot of people talk about this. And D&I is like the big thing right now, right? So everyone's talking about D&I work and how we do that, etc. And so I have a panel here who could actually address some of these issues. How can we educate our company on all levels the importance of D&I in the most effective manner? I'll start with you, Cedric.
Wow. So here's what I'd say. I think that it's real important for, if you're really thinking about how do you help educate your company, you really have to think about what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? But starting at the ground level, it is about doing the broad, deep work. It's not about just hanging a sign, putting a statement out there. It's really about what are you doing as an organization to be more inclusive. How are you not only bringing on diverse employees, but what are you doing in your organization to kind of prevent kind of the barriers to bringing those folks on? And then what are you doing culturally to make sure that you build the most inclusive organization as possible? Some of it, I'll tell you this, that a lot of folks think it's built in training. While that's a piece of it, it goes way beyond that. And I think that often folks look to training to kind of fixing everything. But if at the core, you're not really about diversity, it'll be a revolving door. And it can't be the flavor of the moment because of where we are. But you have to really think from a core perspective. What are you trying to accomplish? And it can't just be about the flavor of the moment.
Thank you. Kimila, you want to answer this one?
Sure. Thank you, Cedric. I'm a corporate executive, and my philosophy is where the leaders go, the people follow. So how I would approach it, and how I have approached it in my organization, and I've seen it the same approach be very successful. Let's start with the executive team. It has to start with the CEO. That also includes the board. But sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to have those ongoing, robust conversations with the board as frequently as you need to. But as an executive team and leadership, it starts there. And when I say it starts there, it's about having those open, honest, candid conversations about where does the company stand in relationship to diversity, equity, and inclusion? What does the company want to provide to the communities it serves and its members or customers? And in order to do that, what needs to change or be enhanced about the culture? So I would say starting with the leadership and having those frank conversations about what are the goals for DE&I. Two, ensuring that the corporate culture is such that is inclusive, where it pulls people in and not pushes them away. A lot of time corporations or companies, they have a diversity, equity, inclusion statement. What's new now, it's an anti-racist statement, but nothing changes about the culture. And so being able to really work on the culture and identify those unwritten rules, those messages that are being sent that aren't actually being articulated, but the message is being sent in some type of, maybe it's a policy, it's a procedure, who's called in to work on special projects. That would be where I would start to educate the rest of the organization. I'm sorry, my phone's ringing about that.
I can really hear it, so that's no problem. Thank you for that. So last question, then I'm gonna let all of you go. Thank you. We're going over time here, but I think it's a question that's core to my heart, being a Madisonian. What can the Madison community do to attract and retain Black talent? And I'm going to start with Dr. Ruben Anthony. I'm gonna let you start. I'm gonna come all the way around and end with you, Camille. So I'm gonna go Dr. Ruben Anthony, Kimila, Cedric, then Camille, and then we'll end on that question. Dr. Ruben Anthony.
Yeah. Where the Madison community can start is to be real about it, is to be intentional about it, and to demonstrate with the current employees that they have here that they will advance them, that they will promote them, that they will mentor them and give them opportunities. Show the example by doing. Also go to our historically Black colleges and universities and bring people back, create paid internships, do mentoring, and people will say that it's good if it's good. But if people are not treated well, they don't have advancements in their careers, they don't get good paying wages, if they're the lonely only, a company has just hired one Black person to say we got it done, that's not going to work. And I'll stop there. So you got to hire some Black people.
Thank you, Dr. Ruben Anthony. Appreciate your wisdom today. Appreciate you, brother. Kimila, same question to you.
Yeah, Dr. Anthony is spot on. I like the lonely only phrase. I've been a lonely only throughout my work career. I would say it's about, in order to attract diverse talent, you have to create a culture for them that supports them. And that goes along with what Dr. Anthony was saying. They need to know that there's an opportunity for them to join a company that values them and their input. And most importantly, a company that has created a career path for them to grow. Often what's missing in organizations is we're so focused on getting them in the door, but not so focused on retaining them. People of color, especially Black professionals, they want an opportunity to grow with the organization. And the more you hire Black talent, but you don't create an opportunity for them to grow and advance the organization, the more that gets out to the Black talent that you're trying to attract. So there's just conversations around, hey, you don't want to go there because you're going to be stuck in the role that was hired into, excuse me. So being able to create some very intentional career development, career tracks, and making sure it's a culture that embraces them, that word will get out. They will talk to others, and that will help increase the pipeline.
Thank you for that, Ms. Daniels. Appreciate your time today, everything you're doing over there at Quartz. Cedric, how would you answer this question, sir? And come on, Cedric, this is a good question for you, bro. I want to have you answer this question.
So you know what? I think Dr. Anthony and Kimila both have captured what fundamentally I'd like to capture as well. So want to say ditto to what they both have shared. The one thing that I think is really important that I really think that the Madison community can do better about retaining folks of color in our community is stop expecting folks of color to be like them. So there's a level of, yeah, come to Madison, come to our organization, but here, don't be who you are, be like us. And candidly, there's a lot of white supremacy in that, because they think that what is white is right. It is not necessarily that. It is about, are you allowing people to show up fully who they are and accepting them for their attributes and contributions and strengths. I think that what I've experienced in Madison is I've gotten more of the come be like us and not necessarily meeting me where I am. And I think that a lot of folks of color had that same experience.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's powerful stuff right there. I appreciate that, Cedric. Camille, same question to you, and then we'll wrap it up. And again, people, we have questions that are coming in at the end here, and I'm sorry when we get to them, which maybe we'll try to answer some other way, but I apologize. Camille, I'll let you answer the last question.
Well, thank you for ending on my note. And thank you so much, Henry, for your hosting this important conversation. It's an honor to be a part of the panel and to share insights in this way. Having come into Madison 18 years ago as a Black professional, not knowing anyone or even being connected to a university, I'm an entrepreneur. I came here, for some brighter beginnings, and I never actually thought that I would stay in Madison. I'd always moved and lived all over the world, and just thought Madison was a pit stop, and Madison actually retained me. So I think I can speak to this pretty successfully because I was completely an outsider, not being able to bridge that gap with the university or a corporation. And what I can say is that I came to Madison for the lifestyle, and I full-heartedly embrace what Cedric has said and all of the other panelists, but especially what Cedric has said is that Madison can be more inclusive and welcoming to, just really receiving families of color and embracing the family culture. The school system is essential to young professionals, and we know the state of our school system. And I can say successfully that my daughter has done very well in this environment, but when I look at all of her peers, unfortunately, they have not. And I am very saddened to know that and to have seen and witnessed that firsthand. And there's no reason and no excuse, in my opinion, why Madison has failed so profoundly our children of color. Our children are our legacy. And if we are not providing the institutional foundation for our children to be nurtured, then families should go somewhere else. They shouldn't be retained here. So we really do have to fix that piece. From a lifestyle and a corporate standpoint, there's opportunities that exist, and there's a lot of good things to be benefited from here in Madison, but we really have to start with the family, the culture, addressing our children. I think that there can be more outreach in the Black community to young professional talent that comes into Madison. Everyone, you come in and you get siloed in and you kind of figure it out. I think we can have more intentionality from our end as business leaders, as civic leaders, to outreach and to work with corporations directly to have some type of pipeline to where we can really bridge that gap as professionals.
Well, that was, thanks for answering that question. And thank you for all for being here in Madison, staying here and helping our city move forward. So thank you for all of you, all that you're doing, all the wonderful work. Thank you for joining us, Camille. Thank you for everything. You got so much love today about the Black Chamber. Woo! That's powerful stuff. That shows that you're needed. So thank you, sis, everything you're doing. Mr. Ellis, thank you, sir. Thanks for your wisdom. And we love that you're here in Wisconsin.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother.
Great.
And Kimila, thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for your wisdom. And please stay engaged. And I hope you don't feel alone now. You said something about being lonely or being a lone person. Hope you don't feel that now in Madison.
Only lonely.
Only lonely.
Only lonely. It was when Dr. Anthony was referring to organizations hiring one person of color and they're the only lonely. I think we probably have all experienced that at some point in our career.
Yeah, we have. Yes,
yeah, I'm a part of the Madison community, so
Yes.
It's a little too cold for me a few months of the year, but I still stay here. So very committed to the community and the work. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in the community, but there's a lot of successes as well. So I'm very proud to be a part of it.
The Madison community is blessed to have the Daniels family here in our community. So thank you. We are blessed to have you. And sir, Dr. Ruben Anthony, sir, as always, it is a pleasure being on any platform with you, brother. I appreciate your wisdom, your heart for the city, and your heart for Black people, making sure that we have a future. So brother, I appreciate you and everything you're doing for our community, some of the big things that you're doing now for our community. So thank you for that. And I want to thank In Business Magazine. Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for let's have this platform, to have this wonderful and authentic conversation. And thanks for everyone for chiming in, and maybe we'll see you again. We'll see. But thank you.
Thank you, 365. Thank you, In Business.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you, Madison community. You are a great community.